with the United States and Russia and China. Nuclear strategists have put the doomsday clock, I think it's 2 minutes to midnight, pointing out the existential threat that we face of nuclear catastrophe. And so this nuclear arms race, this is being kicked off as Donald Trump tore up the INF treaty that was negotiated by Reagan and Gorbachev, something that people said was impossible back when they were working towards accomplishing this, but they did it, and they made our country and the world more safe by doing so. That's in the trash bin. There's another treaty, the New START treaty, that's in place to work towards de-escalating tensions and non-proliferation efforts that's due to expire in February of 2021. This administration has made no efforts whatsoever towards re-upping and reauthorizing that treaty, pushing us farther and farther in the wrong direction. We had a huge wake-up call in Hawaii last year about how serious this threat is. Early on a Saturday morning, our state civil defense put out an alert all over text messages, the radio, television, telling the people of Hawaii, missile incoming, seek shelter immediately. This is not a drill. How many of you saw the news or know what I'm talking about? Because that just pointed out not just a threat to Hawaii, but really to our country. While that turned out to be a false alarm, it really showed the reality of the threat that we face, where there, at that time, we thought our loved ones had 15 minutes to live. And when they started running around looking for shelter, it said, seek immediate shelter. There was nowhere to go. I want to ask you here, if we got that alert here right now, this afternoon, where would you go? How many of you know? Raise your hand. How many of you know exactly where you would go or what you would do? Because there is no shelter. There is no shelter. Our leaders have failed us, creating this situation where we are facing this threat of nuclear catastrophe. There is no shelter, moving farther and farther in the wrong direction. This event that happened to us in Hawaii was a huge wake-up call for us all. It was a major reason why I decided to run for president, to provide the kind of leadership, bringing the experience that I've gained through nearly 7 years in Congress, working on the Foreign Affairs Committee, working on the Armed Services, the Homeland Security Committees, meeting with world leaders, working with different military commands, providing oversight over the Department of Defense, the Department of State, working in these areas of national security and peace that have equipped me to be able to walk into the Oval Office on day one to fulfill that responsibility of Commander-in-Chief of our armed forces, to bring about the kind of sea change in our foreign policy that we need so desperately. As your President Commander-in-Chief, I will end these regime change, dictator toppling wars, make sure we don't start any new ones, work to end this new Cold War and nuclear arms race, and redirect our taxpayer dollars back towards actually serving the needs of our people and our communities right here at home. This is my personal commitment to you. Our campaign is a people-powered campaign. We take no PAC contributions or lobbyist contributions. And if you've been paying any attention to not only the message of our campaign, but the work that I've been doing throughout my 7 years in Congress, you know that I will stand strong in my mission of serving the people of this country and will not bow to the foreign policy establishment or the political establishment or the military-industrial complex. They will not distract me from that mission, where every single day you know that I wake up ready and eager and focused on serving you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to our conversation here. We've got Vince in the back who's got the microphone. Right here, Vince. We've got one up here in the front. You can just wait just 1 second.
Congresswoman, the United States Constitution, the founders of this country gave to Congress the power to fix the standard of weights and measures. That's one of the powers in Article 1, Section 8. And in 1866, Congress passed a law saying that people in the United States have a right to use the metric system. But that doesn't do much good when the states are still free to post mile-per-hour speed limits and force the grocers to post unit prices in quarts. And worse than that, when my wife filed for United States citizenship, the application instructions say, write down your height in feet and inches. Do not use metric units. Can we, the people of the United States, count on President Gabbard to secure the blessings of the metric system to ourselves and our posterity?
Wow.
Or would you be on the side of the ignoramuses who are proud that they don't even know the metric system?
Whoa. I think you've got a lot of people here on your side on this one. I wouldn't use such strong language myself. I'm not used to using the metric system. I hope I don't fall in the ignoramus category. Look, this is not a conversation I've ever had with anybody. I think it's great that we're starting this conversation here today, and perhaps we should have this dialogue as a country so we the people can make sure our voices are heard on this issue. Thank you for raising that. That's one of the best questions I've ever gotten. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm a physician. I have a question about healthcare access. Okay. Our country, our people have financed the most modern medical technology in the world, but we cannot access it. I work at the VA and I'm proud because I know no one goes bankrupt getting healthcare there.
Yeah. Thank you for your service and taking care of our veterans.
My father was a Vietnam vet. My medical school invented the checkpoint inhibitor, which is one of the cures to cancer, and people cannot access it in the state of New Hampshire. And I think that's wrong.
I agree.
What would you do to help them?
Thank you. I agree with you. It is wrong. We have some of the best innovations in this country that are too often reserved for only those who have the money to be able to get that care, regardless of those who may need it desperately. But if they don't have the right job, or if they don't make enough money, or don't have the right health insurance, then they're out of luck. And sometimes with very devastating consequences on their lives, the lives of their loved ones. This is why I strongly believe our country needs what I would call a single-payer plus healthcare plan that would guarantee every single American gets not just that access, taking the word access out of it, is able to get the care, the quality care that they need. We have the best to offer in this country. And rather than thinking about the profits of big insurance or big pharma, we're actually building a healthcare system that puts the health and well-being of our people first and delivering that care to them wherever they are. I think this is the mandate that we have. This is the guarantee that everyone needs to be assured of. If there are people who would still choose to purchase private insurance on a supplementary basis, or would maybe have their employer who offers them good health care insurance, they should obviously have the freedom to be able to do that. But that does not detract or undermine in any way, shape, or form that every single person automatically, this is not a public option, that every single American is guaranteed that health care, that quality health care, the best that our country has to offer. Thank you for your service. And I think just to close out on this point, you have my personal commitment that big insurance and big pharma will have no seat at the policy-making table in my White House. Yes, sir, in the green shirt. Hold on for the microphone. We want to make sure everybody can hear you. What's your name, sir?
Hello, my name is Sam, and as a descendant of an Armenian genocide survivor, I thank you for voting yes to commemorate the Armenian genocide. You said the denial of the Armenian genocide has had a contemporary consequences. What consequences?
Thank you, Sam, for raising this very important issue. First, let me just say I had the privilege of joining a congressional delegation to go and actually visit Armenia, where we had the chance to meet with descendants like yourselves of this Armenian genocide, where we heard directly from them how this generations-long denial of that genocide leads to the continuation of innocent people being slaughtered in a genocide, whether it be because of their religion or their ethnicity or their race. I think what we are seeing now that has begun to occur in Syria with Turkey. Donald Trump moved our troops from the northern border of Syria on almost a moment's notice, putting out a green light for Turkey to begin their invasion and occupation and ethnic cleansing of the Syrian Kurds. This is why that legislation was so important for us to get passed through Congress, to recognize, to make sure that the United States and the world knows that we recognize that that genocide occurred against the Armenian people, against the Assyrian people, so that we can do all that we can to make sure that these genocides no longer continue in the world. Unfortunately, this legislation that you referenced, Sam, is currently being blocked in the Senate. It's being blocked in the Senate. And I can tell you that as we have seen these efforts to recognize the Armenian genocide in the past, they have failed because we have leaders in our government who care more about offending Turkey than they do about doing the right thing and recognizing this genocide and bringing the story of your ancestors to the forefront to prevent this from happening again. I think that is wrong and offensive in the deepest possible way. And we need to hold those leaders accountable. They've got to get their priorities straight. Thank you.
Hi, Tulsi.
Hi.
I'd like to thank you for your service, both as an officer in the armed forces and in challenging this country's corrupt foreign policy establishment.
Thank you.
So, at an earlier event, you were gifted a documentary exposing Israel's role in the 9/11 attacks. And I was wondering, have you gotten a chance to watch this documentary? And if so, has it convinced you that not only has the CIA collaborated with Al-Qaeda, but Mossad as well?
I have not watched the documentary. I would like to talk about some folks who I'm working with right now with regards to the attacks on 9/11. A little over a month ago, I was approached by family members of those who were killed in the attacks on 9/11, and they asked for my help because for so long now, they have been struggling trying to get documents from within our government related to the FBI investigation as to who was aiding and assisting the hijackers who launched those planes into those buildings on that day. The FBI led these investigations, coalition of local New York Police Department detectives and other law enforcement agents who were investigating what exactly happened, who was involved, who put these people up, what went into the years that led to those attacks. These families have seen the door shut at them at every turn. Once again, leaders who are not putting the interests of the people of our country first. This is wrong, and this needs to change. This is why I'm standing with them. I've introduced a resolution calling on our government to declassify and to release these documents, both to bring about closure and justice for these families who are looking to hold accountable those responsible. Congress passed legislation years ago that I voted for that would allow these families to file a lawsuit, even against a foreign government, in this case Saudi Arabia, to hold them to account. But they've not been able to do so because our government won't release the facts and the information and the evidence that they have in hand. This is about those families and those survivors, those first responders, survivors, but it's about our own national security and the American people and our fact that we deserve to know the truth. So this is something that I want to ask all of you to stand with me on. This is something that unfortunately has gone forgotten for a very long time. But meanwhile, you have these children of those who were killed in the 9/11 attacks, who were still honoring their loved ones who were killed and still seeking truth and seeking justice.
Thank you very much, Tulsi.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, we're going to go on to another question. We don't have very much time. Yes, sir. There you go.
ANCreport.com.
So recently, Facebook has announced their new cryptocurrency, and it feels like just by the day they're growing as a really powerful monopoly. So I wanted to ask you, like, what are the consequences of having a monopoly like Facebook thrive in the United States? And do you plan to be kind of like a Teddy Roosevelt when it comes to just taking them down?
I think what you're talking about is really dangerous, because we're already seeing how we really have these big tech monopolies, right? You've got Google on one hand. Google is the most used search engine in the United States and in the world. I think close to 80% of us use Google as a search engine. They own YouTube, which a lot of us use. How many people see stuff on YouTube? You've got Google on one hand. You've got Facebook on the other hand. Facebook owns Instagram and WhatsApp. Now, Mark Zuckerberg, who talked about running for president last year, if you remember, he was talking about it and saying, okay, he's going to turn 35 in time to be able to run this year. He didn't end up running for president, but he now wants to create his own currency that he would control. We have antitrust laws in place to deal with big monopolies that are in a position to abuse their power. And I think that we need to use those laws, make sure that they are applicable to these big tech monopolies. Because when you look at it, you've got a lot of power within the hands of just a couple of people. And what does that power allow them to do? It allows them to decide what pops up in your search engine, decide what kind of information you're seeing or not seeing, deciding whose voices are heard and whose maybe are canceled for one reason or another. This is something that we in our campaign experience in a pretty direct way, where I'm filing a lawsuit against Google right now because of this abuse of power. We had, during the very first debate of this presidential election, we had hoped that I would do well and that people would want to look for my name and say, okay, who's Tulsi Gabbard? Let me find out more information. So in preparation for this, we had our Google Ads account set up, went through and checked all the boxes, had all these things pre-approved, ready to go. Turned out I was the most searched candidate of that night, and have been every other debate since. But the problem was that as I was the most searched candidate, all of a sudden our Google Ads account was suspended without any explanation of saying, hey, you did this wrong, fix it, and then we'll put your account back up. Nope, we didn't get any of that. So our tech guys, they were calling, emailing, they're trying to figure out, hey, tell us what we gotta do. We wanna get this back up as quickly as possible. We didn't get a response for a long time. We started to get a response. It didn't make a whole lot of sense. We started hearing different things from different people. And then all of a sudden, eventually our account was reinstated without really any explanation about why it was taken down in the first place. So when you think about a company that has the power to inject itself in interfering in our fair elections process, our democracy, our public discourse, to a sitting member of Congress running for the highest office of the land, you can see what kind of power they have to do this to anybody, whether you're running for office, for local school board, or anyone who's trying to get information out in front of people. So I think there are very serious threats here that exist both to our freedom of speech and public discourse, as well as to our civil liberties and privacy. And in both of these areas, I think government has a role to play to be able to make sure that we don't allow for that abuse of power, that we protect our rights as consumers, and that we're protecting our private information. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have time for one more question.
First of all, I wanted to thank you for going on Fox News.
Thank you.
I saw you on Tucker about 4 or 5 times.
Good, I'm glad.
And, I'm actually a diehard Republican, and that's what opened me up to starting to listen to you.
Thank you.
I actually compliment you. You spoke very well each time you were spoken. I'm as grateful Tucker actually gave you time to speak as opposed to 20 seconds you hear from most people.
Yeah.
There's also on Fox that I heard Geraldo Rivera came on one point when you were being attacked, and he apparently was covering Afghanistan when you were over there.
Oh, interesting. I served in Iraq, but
I'm sorry.
yeah, no.
I knew you were overseas, but
Yeah.
he spoke extremely highly of you.
Wow.
Said you were a very brave person and he just thought very highly of you. So again, I'm listening more to you. I have one real concern.
Yeah.
Because I've heard you speak about getting out of Afghanistan, but I've heard soldiers on TV saying, if we don't go there to the terrorists, they're going to come here.
Sure.
So I guess that's my one question I haven't heard you answer.
It's a good question.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. On your first point, I go on Fox News, I go on MSNBC and CNN because my goal and aim is to speak to all Americans, because my hope is to serve all Americans. That's what it means to show respect to each other, where you and I may end up agreeing on some and disagreeing on other issues, but you know that I respect you and the responsibility that you have as a voter to decide what kind of future you want for our country. Your question about Afghanistan is really important because I think there's a distinction that's necessary to be made between our troops having a never-ending occupation in a certain country, and the question that we should be asking about whether that's necessary and does it serve our national security interests or not. And then looking at, okay, well, what is our national security interest? And your concern about the threat of Al-Qaeda, I agree that it's necessary for us to be able to take out and defeat those threats early on before they're allowed to continue to grow, unfortunately, which is what we're seeing happening in Syria right now, where Al-Qaeda and the other jihadist terrorist groups that are there, they control an entire city in northern Syria, the city of Idlib. And so they've grown to a much greater place and stronghold. This is where al-Baghdadi went to hide out, in this city of Idlib controlled by Al-Qaeda. So that's why it's important that we try to root out these threats before they build and they grow to that point. Continuing to keep thousands and thousands of troops in Afghanistan, in my opinion, is not the best way to achieve that objective. Because that's really not what most of our troops are doing there right now. They're still focused on a nation-building mission or dealing with the Taliban and other things in Afghanistan, really issues that need to be left to the Afghan people and the Afghan government. I believe that those negotiations should resume for them to determine what kind of governance structure they want for their future. If our concern is about Al-Qaeda and a terrorist threat to our country, I think that we should have maybe a small regional force that's able to quickly deploy, take out a threat, and then leave, rather than have thousands of troops occupying all of these different bases across the Middle East. This would be far more effective. It would take less of a toll on our troops. It would cost us less as taxpayers, and it is the superior strategy for us to accomplish that objective. I'm going to take one last one here. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. 1 second. Let's get the...
I'm sorry. Thank you.
as president, if you are looking toward facilitating a two-state solution for the Israelis and the Palestinians, what would you do to ensure that President Abbas and the Palestinian people would accept to live side by side with an Israeli Jewish state, and also allow Jewish people to be able to visit the holy sites in those areas and cities that have sites that are holy to the Jews as well as to Arabs and Christians?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. I've been to Israel once and to the West Bank once on the same trip where I had the opportunity to meet with both the Israeli government leaders as well as some of the Palestinian leadership. And in the conversations that I've had then and since then in the years in Congress, I know and understand that I believe that we need a two-state solution and support efforts to accomplish that. It is through negotiations between the Israeli government and the Palestinian government that can accomplish that. I think that we in the United States can do all that we can to help support those efforts, to help facilitate those efforts, but I believe that any external dictating of the terms won't stand. I think it will actually undermine achieving what you're talking about, where you have the leaders in both countries representing the interests of their people and achieving a negotiated outcome that both sides will respect and abide by. I think that's absolutely essential. I think, unfortunately, some of the recent steps taken by the Trump administration have really undermined any existing prospects towards those negotiations resuming. I think it's pushed this effort farther off track than maybe it was previously. So I think there's a lot of work and a long way to go towards doing that. And I think that we in the United States should help to do what we can to try to bring both sides back together again to resume these talks that are necessary towards achieving a two-state solution where the Israeli people and the Palestinian people can live in a peaceful, stable, secure society and in a place that they both can call their home. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you all taking the time and the discussion that we've been able to have here today. I want to bring Vince up on stage here in a second. He is one of our incredible volunteer leaders who is leading the way to continue to build our people-powered campaign all across New Hampshire. We need your help. And so I want to ask Vince to come up and just share a few words about why he's doing what he's doing and how you can join the fun.
Hey guys, I'm Vince. Tulsi is very flattering, but the reality is I am a civilian. I am one of you. I live in New Hampshire. I've been in Nashua for 6 years. She jumped on my radar in 2015, like for a lot of people here, I'm sure. So when she had announced she was running, I thought it was going to be a sure thing and there would be no issues. I didn't quite understand how the media worked. I was young still. It's only a few months ago, but whatever. But you know, I turned it on and I started thinking, I'm healthy, I'm 30 years old, I'm able-bodied. If I get up and at tulsi2020.com, I got called the next week to Sine Wave, and now I'm doing a few other things in between work. But the idea is now is, you know, we're trying to start a movement. So, you know, today you signed in. There's some yard signs on your way out if you want. You can donate. We got merchandise. But if you really want to join this cause, if you want to stay connected past today or past any other time Tulsi's in town, sitting on your or underneath your chairs, or you may be sitting on them, I don't know. But we call them pledge cards. And the idea on that is, if you want to commit today to talk to 2 people in the next 2 days, or if you want to throw a house party, if you want to commit to yourself, right? You don't have too much time, you're raising a family or whatever. You want to commit to, I'm going to pick up together to help Tulsi out. And so at the end of today, take your cards, and if you're interested, leave them with Dasi at the sign-in table in the back on your way out. And I hope to call every single one of you. There's a lot of people here. But with that, Tulsi's short on time. She's got a holiday stroll to go through this.
For our nation. From the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for being here today. It's wonderful to see all of you. I'm going to be able to stick around for a little while if you want to come up and just say hi or take a picture or something like that. I'd love to see you. I think you can line up on this side of the room and be able to share our aloha together for a few more minutes. Thanks again to all of you for being here. Thanks to St. Anselm for hosting us, all of our volunteers. Thank you all so much. Thank you.
So he wanted to give you this?
Thank you very much.
It's from his children, I believe.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for sharing this. I will look through all of this a little later. Can I keep this? Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. What's your name?
I'm Greta.
Nice to meet you,
Nice
Greta.
to meet you too.
Thanks so much for coming today.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you. Awesome.
Thank you. And then I was gonna can I get one with him?
Yeah,
and
of
you
course.
Hi, how's it going?
Hi,
Costas,
good.
nice to meet
Costas,
you.
nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Thanks
For
for
what you're
being
doing.
here. Thank you so much.
Very good. Awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Really appreciate
Can
it.
we do one with the three
Together?
of us? We know
Absolutely.
each other.
Absolutely. Where do you guys go to school?
Thank you. Suffolk.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Thank you.
Thank you so
I'm
much.
glad you could come today. Thanks. How you doing?
Yeah.
Nice to see you.
Did you get it?
Would you like a picture together? I got one.
No.
Hi.
I'm Lisa.
How are you, Lisa?
I'm fine,
So
and
nice
I lived
to
on
meet you.
Kauai for about 5
Oh,
years.
Nice.
And I just pray and hope that you're going to be our next president.
Thank you.
Just to have a woman, but a woman like you.
Thank
is
you.
what's really important.
Thank you so
And
much.
I
Can I give you a
also-
hug?
Yeah, I'd love to have a hug. And I brought you this. A friend of mine in Kauai made it for me, and I want to give it to you.
Oh my
It's one of those beads.
gosh.
I mean, you know,
Jove's tears.
it's an extra thing. You may
No,
not
this
want
is
it.
so beautiful.
But they are beautiful.
Thank you
aren't
very
they?
much.
So,
Thank you.
aloha.
I feel like you've just brought home to me today.
Yes, good, good.
Thank you. This is so beautiful.
Yeah, we'll work for you.
Thank you. I need your help. Thank you very much. Hi,
Rebecca.
how are you?
Thank
Rebecca?
You. Yes,
Nice
thank
to
you
meet
for
you.
your service. My
Thank
dad was
you.
in the Marines for 40 years.
Oh, wow.
So I truly appreciate it.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for running. I mean, you're exactly what America needs. So
Thank
let's
you.
go.
Thanks for your
Tulsi,
help.
2020.
I need
Let's
you.
go.
I
Let's
need
go.
you. Thank you. Awesome.
Thank you.
Really
Have a good day.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
too. Thank you.
Hi, Tulsi.
How are you?
I'm Richard.
Nice to meet
Nice
you.
to meet you. How
Thanks
do
for
you get
being
along
here.